Good afternoon, everyone, and this is Burke Lyle, and it is hockey afternoon. I'm reporting live from Athens, Georgia, and today is May 15th, 2021. And what this means is the Stanley Cup playoffs will be starting tonight. We have Game 1 between the Capitals and the Bruins on NBC. I assume it will be Kenny Albert, Ailchik, and Brian Boucher. This is how we kick off the Stanley Cup playoffs, and I want to kind of make an interesting video. So what I want to do is I want to kind of go quickly through each series and just give a little facts and maybe histories. Not going to be a deep dive breakdown, just kind of run through each series, kind of what I want to see, kind of what potential storylines I'm looking for, and we'll go in order. We'll go the East Division, then we'll go the Central Division, then we'll do the West Division, and we'll wrap up with the North Division, the Canadian Division. We'll just talk about matchups we might want to see. This is kind of a rapid fire thing. This is not going to be an hour. It's probably, I think will be under 20 minutes. So let's get started. So in the North Division, in the East Division, this is what you have. 4 teams. The matchups will be Penguins, Islanders, Capitals, Bruins. Those will be the matchups. So Penguins and Islanders, interesting history. So the Penguins have won 3 Stanley Cups in the Sidney Crosby era. They won in 2009. They won in 2016 and 17 and won back-to-back championships. By the way, only team since the Red Wings, since they won in 97-98, to win back-to-back championships. And not only that, when you talk about post-lockout, salary cap era, Penguins are the only team to do that. Penguins and Crosby and Evgeny Malkin, I guess Chris Letang, they're all trying to win their 4th Stanley Cup championship together. Finally, well, the Islanders, you look at their history. They won 4 Stanley Cups in a row. I think from 1980, 1983, have not been back to the finals since then. So you talk about kind of this most successful team of the 80s, and then the Penguins of the early 1990s. So you look at, and then obviously in recent years, so you have Penguins, Islanders, kind of a different style of play. Islanders more of a defensive-minded team, especially now that Anders Lee is out. Penguins more so offense, and they won that East Division in teams that we have teams like the Flyers, who were really good last year, thought they might be a Stanley Cup contender during the playoffs last year. Also having teams like the Capitals and the Bruins, up-and-coming Rangers team, and the Penguins, they managed to win that division. They managed to be the best of all those teams. So the Penguins are North Division champions. They'll be playing the Islanders. Now you have Capitals, Bruins. Think about this. They've had a lot of recent success over the last decade. By the way, before I say anything else, the Penguins, by the way, this is their 15th consecutive playoff appearance. Think about that. 15 years in a row for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Sidney Crosby was a 19-year-old kid. The first time he was playing in the playoffs was in the Stanley Cup Finals at 20, winning a cup at 21. By the way, Capitals, this is their 13th appearance in 14 years. I believe for the Bruins, this is their 12th appearance in 14 years. Capitals in the playoffs for their 7th straight year. I mean, it just goes back to the Rock the Red era of Ovechkin and Nicholas Backstrom. I mean, they go way back, all the way back to 2008. Here they are now. So the Capitals, they're trying to win their 2nd Stanley Cup in 4 years. The Bruins trying to make their 2nd Stanley Cup Finals appearance in 3 years. The Caps won the Cup in 2018. The Bruins went to the Finals and lost in Game 7 to the Blues in 2019. They have won 5 out of the last President's Trophies. Combined, they've had a lot of success. Each of them have gone to 4 Stanley Cup Finals appearances combined, but this is their first time facing off each other since the 2012 playoffs, when the Bruins were the defending Stanley Cup champions at the time. The Capitals were having a down year. Game 7 in Boston, Joel Ward basically ended the Bruins' chances of repeating right then and there in Game 7 in Boston. Bruins have had a lot of disappointment in the last decade in the playoffs. So the Capitals, they've each won a Stanley Cup, and one of these teams is going to lose in the first round. I mean, you think about the Bruins' perfection line. This is a hot team going to the playoffs. You wondered if they look like potentially the fourth team in that division. They've jumped all the way up to 3rd. The perfection line, Bergeron, Marchand, and Pasternak, in addition to bringing in Taylor Hall. You wonder if this is the best Bruins team. First, they got to get by Washington. One of these teams is going to have a disappointing first-round loss. All right, so that is our first round. Those are storylines there I wanted to share off the top of my head. All right, Next we'll go Central. So again, all Southern teams. Think about these cities. Not really traditional hockey cities. Carolina, Florida Panthers, Tampa Bay Lightning, Nashville Predators, kind of suburban Miami are the Florida Panthers. So you kind of have all Southern hockey teams. Hey, if all four of those teams can have a city team and a hockey team, we right here in Atlanta should have one. Exactly, we should. Well, you have this Predators who were in the playoffs for the 7th consecutive year in a row. Last Stanley Cup Finals appearance was 2017 when they lost to the Penguins. Back then, they followed that up with a President's Trophy there in the playoffs for the 7th year in a row, and I didn't think it was going to happen. They got hot down the stretch. They overtook the Chicago Blackhawks and then held off the Dallas Stars. Where on the other side, you have the Carolina Hurricanes, who made a surprise run to the conference finals 2 years ago, coached by Rod Brindamore. This year, they look right there in the President's Trophy race until the very end. This is a really good Carolina Hurricanes team, and you wonder if they are potentially if they're in the Stanley Cup Finals conversation. Then on the other side, you have Florida. You have the Tampa Bay Lightning, by the way, the defending Stanley Cup champions, who won the finals last year in the Edmonton bubble. I mean, they had to beat Columbus, including Game 1 in 5 overtimes, then Game 5 in overtime. They had to beat the Boston Bruins, Game 5 in overtime, and then they had to beat the New York Islanders, Game 6 in overtime. Allowing 1 goal away from a potential Game 7. So this Lightning team had to go through overtime, and then beating the Dallas Stars in 6 games to win the Stanley Cup Finals in Edmonton. Not how they envisioned it. They came back to Tampa. They celebrated in Tampa. That was before COVID got out of control, where it was just bad. So you had that. So you had the Lightning finally winning a Stanley Cup championship after that disappointing President's Trophy team that lost in the first round. Not only lost in the first round, got swept by this kind of Blue Jackets team. Well, guess what? Blue Jackets just fired John Tortorella, so there you go. So you have that headline right there. So you have those 2 Florida teams. The Panthers, they're coached by Joel Quenneville. Joel Quenneville won 3 Stanley Cup champions with the Blackhawks. 10, 13, 15, 3 Stanley Cup champions. Right there, has experience. Has coached a lot of good teams in his career. This is the most successful Florida Panthers team, possibly in 25 years. Yet, one of these Florida teams, both good, is going to lose in the first round of the playoffs this year. The Lightning trying to win back-to-back Stanley Cup championships, and then you have the Panthers. One of these teams is going to have a disappointing ending, and the Panthers have had some success over the last. And last year they were playing the Islanders in that play-in tournament. They got bailed out. They were kind of a borderline playoff team last year. This year they really are a legitimate playoff team, and again they were in the President's Trophy conversation. Now, that's going to be a good series between the 2 Florida teams in the Sunshine State. So that's kind of the Central Division right there. Next up, we'll go West. All right, you have the Colorado Avalanche, Vegas Golden Knights, Minnesota Wild, and the St. Louis Blues. First up, you have the President's Trophy winning Colorado Avalanche against the St. Louis Blues, who won the Stanley Cup Finals in 2019. By the way, the Avs in 2017, I think they had less than 50 points. They're one of the worst teams in a long time. A year later, they played in the playoffs against the President's Trophy winning Predators. And they lost that series. They got experience, lost in Game 7 to the Sharks, and lost in Game 7 in overtime to the Dallas Stars last year. After being down 3-1 earlier in the series, a goal away from the conference finals, this Avs team has won the President's Trophy. And yes, they dealt with some injuries. Makar missed some games, so did McKinnon. Here they are now with you have Nate McKinnon, Rantanen, and Landeskog on that first line, a great first line. A good all-around team. Cale Makar might be, in a few years, the Norris Trophy winner. So you have star-studded Avs team that is very well run. I mean, they were terrible. Jared Bednar was the coach when they were awful. Guess who's running the team? Joe Sakic, who won 2 Stanley Cup champions with the Avs, by the way. 20 years ago, the Avs' last Stanley Cup win, you know who they beat? They beat the New Jersey Devils. Ray Bourque received the trophy from Joe Sakic, the current general manager. He had to wait 22 years for this. Say the Avs playing against the Blues, who again, different team. I wonder what it'll look like. Ryan O'Reilly against Nathan McKinnon. That's what it looked like on games that I watched early in the year. You wonder if the Blues. Remember Jordan Bennington 2 years ago, getting hot in the playoffs. Ryan O'Reilly winning the Conn Smythe Award 2 years ago when they beat the Bruins. Well, again, the Blues, they were underdogs in 2019. They're underdogs now. They have to first go through the President's Trophy winning Avs. So the Avs, they're under a lot of pressure. And then they are. And the question is, how far can the Avs go in the playoffs? Well, it starts right here against the Blues. Here's an interesting matchup, Vegas and Minnesota. So think about this. Minnesota, the state of hockey, where every kid in Minnesota plays on a frozen pond. And then you have Vegas, which is in the desert, which 100 years ago was just desert land. Is the exact opposite of Minnesota. It's scorching hot in the summertime. It's 100 plus degrees in the desert. So again, you have the most traditional hockey market you can think of, Minnesota, against the, I'd say, most untraditional hockey market. Again, remember when the Penguins, I was talking about the Penguins Predators? The Vegas Golden Knights weren't around. In their first year of existence, they lost to the Washington Capitals in the Stanley Cup Finals. Last year, Vegas Golden Knights lost to the Dallas Stars, Game 5 in overtime. So their season ended in overtime. And 2 years ago, losing to the Sharks, Game 7 in overtime after blowing a 3-1 lead. So for Vegas, right now, they're about trying to advance to the Stanley Cup Finals, their second one in 4 years, and this time trying to win the Cup. In fact, they were in the President's Trophy race all the way to the end. The Wild kind of seemed like a surprise team this year. Yes, they have Kaprizov, who may win the Calder Trophy year. That's hockey's Rookie of the Year. But you look at their team, and remember how I talked about the Avs? They don't have a lot of big names. It doesn't seem like they have a for sure first, second line. They're kind of mix and match. If you don't know who's going to contribute for them, they really don't have a lot of big names against, say, the Vegas Golden Knights, who are really good both ways. There's a reason why they almost won the President's Trophy. So you have Vegas and Minnesota. That's going to be interesting travel throughout the playoffs. Again, two extreme markets in terms of weather. And you wonder how that series is going to go. He's going to go out. Like, how does Minnesota handle a team like Vegas? That's going to be interesting. Okay, now you have the North Division. So the North Division, all Canada, all 7 Canadian NHL teams played in one division this year. They never crossed the border. Canada has very strict rules on who can come in and who can come out. I feel like they're still pretty strict on rules. In fact, I've seen all NHL games this year. I've seen the American teams. They've had fans. And while in Canada, no one has entered an NHL game this year. And you wonder, with America really starting to really make progress on COVID-19, and then you hear what the CDC did the other day, you wonder when Canada will start to follow America's lead and maybe start to loosen their restrictions. So we'll see. This is not about COVID. It's not about our debates. We're just wondering when Canada will change. Because again, they're very strict. You wonder whoever wins the Canadian division, whichever of these 4 teams makes it to the league semifinals. You wonder how they'll do it. I think what I heard is that one of them might go to Buffalo, something like that. So here are your matchups. You have the Toronto Maple Leafs against the Montreal Canadiens. Maple Leafs have not won a Stanley Cup since 1967. Where for the Montreal Canadiens, they've won 24, not one since 1993. So you have 2 historic Canadian franchises. You have 2 original 6 franchises. The Montreal Canadiens, who last year did get into the playoffs, they're one of the last teams in. They got bailed out. If it weren't for the league shutting down, the Canadiens would have not made it to the playoffs last year. They ultimately would have missed it, and they actually upset the Pittsburgh Penguins last year before ultimately losing to the Flyers. So you have the Montreal. So you have a Canadiens type team against a star-studded Leafs team led by Austin Matthews, who scored 40 goals this year. He's going to get 50. Would have gotten 50 last year if it weren't for the league shutdown. I think we'll get 50 next year. You have Leafs Montreal, historic rivals. They go back a long time. They're meeting in the playoffs. Of course, it's not like you have the Bell Center in Montreal packed. It's not like you have the Air Canada Center in Toronto packed as well. I mean, ask the Raptors. They had to go. Canada didn't want 31 NBA teams coming there. They got relocated to Tampa Bay. And here are the Leafs, best team in a long time. and their fans didn't get to see it this year. So you wonder what if they do indeed win the Stanley Cup this year. You wonder what will happen. So next up, you have the Jets, who again they had traded Patrick Laine earlier this year for Pierre Dubois. They were very cold coming into the playoffs. Yes, they have had some injuries against the Oilers team where Connor McDavid scores 100 points in a 56-game season. That's 2 points per game. That's 150, 160. That's numbers you haven't seen since the days of Wayne Gretzky, Mario Lemieux, kind of the 80s, 1980s style hockey. Connor McDavid really dominating against Canada. Best player in the NHL, also Leon Draisaitl, who won the Hart Trophy last year. So McDavid and Draisaitl. And I've watched Oilers games this year. I've seen sometimes, when you watch the pairings, I've seen McDavid and Draisaitl together. I've seen them separately. Obviously, they'll play together on the power play. You wonder how exactly they'll match up this year against the Winnipeg Jets. Again, the Jets kind of slow on momentum. The Jets did go to the conference finals 3 years ago when they lost to Vegas. And right now, Edmonton, they won obviously those 5 Stanley Cups with Wayne Gretzky, Mark Messier in the 1980s, and also in 1990 they won 5 Stanley Cups. Last time they were in the finals was 2006 when they played the Carolina Hurricanes, and that was an underdog Oilers team. That was the first year of NHL and NBC. So those are kind of some brief storylines kind of going in to the playoffs this year, where you have these matchups. So in terms of advancing, what matchups that I want to see, since it's interesting. So once we get to the league semifinals, obviously let's just play this game right now. Let's just say the division winner wins. So obviously Colorado has the President's Trophy. So they would have that top seed. Vegas tied for that as well. So if they won that division, then they probably have the best record. So you have Colorado. Then in the other division, off the top of my head, I think the Leafs were the second best team. Then you had the Penguins. And then Carolina, I think they're the President's Trophy runner-up. So if every team in the division won, I think it would be Colorado against Pittsburgh. And then you'd have the Leafs and the Hurricanes. So you don't know what matchups we're going to get. I mean, you could have Boston, Toronto in the Stanley Cup Finals or in the league semifinals. You could have all sorts of matchups. I mean, the Stanley Cup Finals this year, it used to be East and West for years. Even last year, somehow East and West. This year, it's completely different. Since there really is no East and West this year, I mean, think about it. The East Division, yes, all Eastern teams. We have the North Division, a mixture of Eastern and Western teams. I mean, you got the Canadian teams that are in Ontario and Quebec, and then you've got teams in Alberta and British Columbia. Western Conference teams in traditional years. Again, the West Division is all Western Conference teams, a mix of old Central Division teams, and then also, as well, a mix of kind of Pacific teams, where in the Central Division, you have a mixture. You have the Carolina Hurricanes, who were in the Metropolitan Division. Then you have teams like Florida, like the 2 Florida teams. Then you have kind of those Central Division teams, kind of the other half of the Central teams like Nashville and Dallas, teams like that. I believe Columbus was in that division as well. Columbus was. So it's a big mix. There's no East versus West. So whoever plays in the Stanley Cup Finals this year, whatever the matchup is, that's going to be interesting. It's going to be untraditional before we probably go back to East and West. And by the way, this is the last year of not having the Seattle Kraken. They will come into existence next year. They'll be playing games next fall. So you have 32 National Hockey League teams. So the league decided to expand to Seattle. So you'll have the Kraken next year. Other notes, this is the last year of NHL and NBC, before ultimately next year will be ESPN and then Turner Sports. They'll have the B package. So final Stanley Cup playoffs this year on NBC. First Stanley Cup playoffs without Doc Emmerich in a very long time. It will be Kenny Albert, who I think will get the finals. We don't know for sure, but that's who I really think it will be. So again, big changes coming as well for the NHL TV deal. So another thing, what matchups I'd want to see in the second round. So in the North Division, I feel like 2 matchups you want to see. I'd want to see Washington-Pittsburgh. I want to see a rematch. Since again, yes, these teams faced off in the playoffs 3 years in a row from 16, 17, 18. The winner of that series went on to win the Stanley Cup. And wins in 16, 17, Capitals in 18. where they all, and by the way, they also faced off in 2009. Penguins won that series. They won the Stanley Cup as well. So you wonder if they face off again, will the team that wins that series ultimately win the Stanley Cup? I'd love to see Washington, Pittsburgh once again in the playoffs. We don't know how many more times we're going to see it with Ovechkin and Crosby kind of creeping into their mid-30s. And as well, Pittsburgh-Boston, I think that could be a good matchup. That could be a fun matchup as well. Obviously, Washington-Pittsburgh is the most ideal matchup that I want. You know, the hockey team I've rooted for the most over the years has been the Washington Capitals. I want to see them play the Pittsburgh Penguins. Central matchup. So you have the two Florida teams matching up right now. I think Carolina-Florida could be a good matchup. Again, maybe you have the Canes as an up-and-coming team against the defending Stanley Cup champions. Or maybe you have Florida-Carolina, two teams that have not had much success going for the league. Semifinals, that could be an interesting matchup right there. By the way, Carolina and Nashville, those are the two teams that are on Bally's Sports South and Southeast, given how here in Atlanta we don't have a hockey team. So those would be, again, no matchup is as appealing. I guess Carolina-Tampa would be what I would want to see. And then in the Central, Colorado-Vegas, that's the matchup everyone wants to see. They've been fighting for the division all year long. Looked like the Golden Knights were going to get the President's Trophy. Ultimately went to Colorado. Both of those teams definitely with Stanley Cup aspirations. That is definitely each of their goals. So if we indeed see a matchup like that, if we indeed see Colorado and Vegas, that would be a good matchup. I think that's what I would want to see. And then finally, in the North Division, no matchup's more appealing than Edmonton-Toronto. You want to see Austin Matthews against Connor McDavid. And for years, I think really going back to 2017, where the Oilers, that series against the Ducks, I remember, I think it was they had a lot of meltdowns. I think in Game 5, they blew a 3-goal lead inside of, the last 2 or 3 minutes in an empty net situation. They lost a devastating Game 5 loss to the Ducks. They lost that series in 7. You thought they'd be up and coming, did not make it to the playoffs again until last year. The Oilers, they definitely need success. Both teams have really had, yes, the Oilers have won a playoff series, but what you're hoping for is you're hoping to see that Toronto, since the Maple Leafs, going back, they got good in 2017, nice surprise, lost to the Presidents winning trophy Capitals, Game 6 overtime. Okay, that's nice. But then 18 and 19, they lost to the Bruins in Game 7. And then last year, they lost to the Blue Jackets in the qualifying round. So for this Leafs team, as good as much fun they've had in the regular season, as much fun as it maybe be to watch Austin Matthews play in the regular season, they need to get it done in the playoffs. And they have to beat, say, a Montreal team. They need to beat the Canadiens. The league wants, and really Canada, CBC, Hockey Night in Canada, they want Edmonton and Toronto. I want that too. That's going to be a big deal. That's a series that I want to see. One of these teams could very well make the league semifinals, and you wonder if Connor McDavid in the playoffs, if he'll score, say, if he's at a 2-point-per-game pace, if he'll score 40 points in the playoffs, have a great Conn Smythe-like performance. I mean, will we see that from Connor McDavid right here in these playoffs? And that's what we're interested to see. And by the way, so in terms of the playoff schedule, so I talked about the series that I want to see. Next up, it'll be interesting to see how they actually resolve. So the Capitals-Bruins, that's the only game tonight. Tomorrow, the rest of the series start. And by the way, the Canadian series, they don't really start till Wednesday, since the Flames and Canucks are still playing each other right now in kind of meaningless games that don't really mean anything, just trying to, I guess, get some games in. So the regular season's not officially over yet in that Canadian division. So right now, we'll get to see the Canadian divisions play later on, and really over the next few weeks, we'll really start to know more what's going on in the playoffs. So if I had to rank in terms of watchability playoff series in this first round right now, I'd say Washington-Boston, I'd say it has to be number 1. Just trying to rank them. Okay, so let's kind of sort them out division by division. So, North Division, what I'd rather see? Washington, Boston, or Pittsburgh and the Islanders. Washington, Boston. Okay, so that's cut out. Next series in the Central, Florida, Tampa, or the Nashville Predators and Hurricanes. I'd say the Florida series. West Division, Vegas and Minnesota, or Colorado, St. Louis. I'd say Colorado, St. Louis. North Division, Toronto, Montreal, or Edmonton, Winnipeg. Again, Connor McDavid factor, that gives you a lot of bonus points. But again, a traditional rivalry, I'm going to say Leafs, Canadiens. So again, ranking the series, I should have written down earlier which series that I wanted to watch. And also, it's going to be fun playoffs. And by the way, I hope I have enough time. I want to try to do morning recaps, and I really want to be committed to this, since I may have other things going on, but I want to try to do morning recaps of the playoff games. They don't have to be long, maybe, 20 minutes, something like that. This video went 25 minutes. So this is kind of the playoffs. Stanley Cup playoffs are here. Looking forward to watching. If you want to see a YouTuber who knows about hockey, watch Hockey Guy. He is the best. He loves hockey, very passionate about the game. I mean, he talks about literally every single regular season game during the season. Hockey Guy is the way to go. So that is everything. This is Burke Lyle here. We thank you for watching this video, and we'll see you next time.